What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. We're so glad you are joining us. We are the Investing Bros, and we got a lot to talk about today. As the title suggests, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and a potential crash coming soon. While price is not necessarily doing anything crazy right now, there are some levels I want to take a look at and some things we've talked about before, but I want to go more in detail on that could suggest that a crash is coming to Bitcoin's price over the next couple of weeks. So make sure you don't go anywhere. We also have some other news we're going to cover, and we're going to look at a lot of different charts today. If that excites you, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe to the channel. I am joined this afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in my time, by Mr. T. Shroom from down there in Gainesville, Florida. T. Shroom, how are we feeling today?
Tim, I'm feeling better than I deserve.
That's good.
Regardless of everything outside of my control, I have peace within. And it is all thanks to this quote here. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. From your boy, Marcus Aurelius. What do you think about that one, Tim?
That's a good one. That is a life lesson that takes a long time to learn, and I'm not going to profess as if I've mastered this one, but I do think that it's been something in the last, I would say, 10 years of my life that I've really had to come to appreciate. There's only so much you can control, and then when you can't control things, it brings anxiety. And I definitely have my share of still where things will happen. I have no control. It brings anxiety to me. I hate it. And you have to learn how to step back and breathe and say, you know what? I can only affect this part of my life, and I have no control over that. And peace is letting go of that and trusting, whether you believe in God or believe in something else, trusting something else to take care of it for you. In my case, my belief in God, the amount of times I've had to just take my things in life and just open up and say, God, whatever you want to do with this. I can't control it anyway, so why am I going to try? I'm going to live at peace and control what I can control, and you control what you control. And I'm telling you right now, no matter who you are, if you can learn how to live that way, that's a nice way to live. That's a very nice way to live. Speaking of things that I could not have control over, I saw a comment earlier talking about it. Some of you guys might have noticed this morning, T. Shroom did a fantastic job running solo on the news update. The reason for that is I got no sleep last night. I don't know what happened because I literally went to bed at 9 p.m. And someone asked me this morning, oh, man, is Brody keeping you up? Brody slept like a champ. This kid is great at sleeping at night. I've been blessed very, very much so by his ability to sleep at night. I don't know what it was. I laid down and it just laid there. And I at one point I look at my phone. I'm like, oh man, is it 4 a.m? And I look over and it's 10 p.m. And then I think I dozed off and I wake back up and I'm like, oh, is it 5 p.m? 11 p.m. And that continued all night. I think I slept a little bit between 4 and 6, but not a lot of sleep, guys. Did not have a lot of sleep. Eric Wallen in chat trying to help me out said there is a thing that you can do that helps this. Dads have been using it for a while now. It's called drinking beer. Not the scenario I'm going to work at, but Eric Wallen, thank you so much for the suggestion. Let's see here. Red Elephant said, Tim, Warren, that's why you're an OG. Ever read a book called Miracle Morning? I have not. Maybe I should look into that. That would work. Eric Wallen also saying whiskey too. Okay. Well, no, not going to use it. By the way, I have nothing against alcohol. I got drunk once in my life and got sick the day after, hangover / also legitimately sick. And ever since then, liquor has smelled terrible to me. It makes me kind of queasy. Beer, I just think let's put this poll in chat, T-Shroom, if you can. Is beer not just wet bread? Is it not just bread juice, I guess, is with a little bit of kick to it? To me, I've never drank a beer and not thought, how about that cold, wet bread? That's all I ever think about. I don't enjoy bread. There was a drink I had in Boston. And T-Shroom, were you with me when I had this, when we were on that trip?
I was.
There was it was an Irish cider, Irish something. Had a hint of orange in it. And that was the first time I drank alcohol and thought, that was actually delicious. That tasted pretty good. Other than that, though, I am not a connoisseur of the spirits. T-Shroom, are you? Do you partake in the drinks?
Yes.
Yeah, you do. I've been with you but you do it responsibly. T-Shroom's a good, responsible drinker. Yeah. At least the times I've spent time with him. I've never seen him get out of out of control. And that's because you control what you can control and you don't
Yeah.
control the things you can't. Heading
Yeah.
back to the quote of the day.
Somehow millions of people drink alcohol every day and manage not to ruin their lives. But
Yeah.
then there's some who can't handle it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, we are not here to talk about bread juice. We're here to talk about crypto, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Let's take a look at some market opening things today. Just kind of kick it off. Not a whole heck of a lot of news. So we're not going to even waste our time really talking about it. We did hear today from a couple different people of the Fed, and the price dropped coincidentally around the time that these guys were speaking. We heard from Barkin, Daly, and Barr. We heard from Mester this morning, but price was actually moving up after Mester spoke. So I don't know what Mester said that was so bullish. But these guys, they cleaned up and said, we're going to drop the price. I don't even know if it's their fault or not. I just think it's coincidental. The price started dropping right around the time that these guys started speaking, and price is still moving slightly to the downside. Tomorrow, though, guys, very important data. Make sure that you guys are at our live show tomorrow. We're not going to be covering this in the news section. I'm sure Piper will talk about it in the 9:30 Piper Academy. So if you haven't already subscribed and watched his channel, make sure you guys go subscribe to Piper Academy. I'm sure he will cover this, but this will be very important. Non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate. Why? Because these are two of the factors that Jerome Powell is heavily working with to decide, should he keep rates paused? Could he raise rates again? Do we need to consider to start cutting rates? And we're going to talk more about that topic throughout the show, but that's going to be very important. That's coming out tomorrow. So make sure you join the live show. We'll break that down. Today, we've actually seen a boost in the prediction for another pause coming with interest rates. 80% now saying we're going to stay at 525 to 550. So that should work in the right direction. We're not going to see an interest rate more than likely in November. Of course, we still have almost an entire month, but for now, people seem very certain no rate hikes are coming in the month of November, and more than likely, we will not see another one again. Let's take a look. Liquidations, not a whole lot of them. Only $19.5 million of Bitcoin were liquidated, and it's pretty 50-50, meaning there wasn't necessarily a lot of movement from trading today, because 10.2 million of those are long liquidations, 9.28 million of those were short. Ethereum at 13 million, not so split evenly. This means Ethereum probably moved a little bit more. This makes sense why the Bitcoin dominance went up. Ethereum had $10.7 million of longs liquidated versus only 2.4 million shorts. That's not significant. Again, we're talking about a very small amount of money compared to the whole market cap, but it is something absolutely that you want to be aware of. Ethereum did drop a little more. Solana coming in third place here. Again, not a lot, only 2.8 million liquidations total, and they're split pretty much evenly between longs and shorts. The market's not necessarily moving too crazy over the last 24 hours. Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index coming in at 48 today. Yesterday it was at 49, so we're still slightly ticking down, but we're staying in neutral, so not a big factor whatsoever right now, but we'll keep you posted on if that makes any big changes. Let's take a look at our coin market cap open. So this is going to judge the last 24 hours, not the opening of the day, just the last 24 hours, where we were yesterday during the show. Bitcoin is down about 1%, but like I said, Ethereum is taking a bigger tumble, down almost 2%. XRP down almost 3%. Cardano having a good 24 hours, up 2%. We're going to check on that chart here today. Toncoin, the big mover right now, up 6.3%. I'm going to be very surprised if anything has a bigger movement than that in the top 20. And sure enough, it does not. Let's take a look at the big gainers. Toncoin, of course, not just the winner of the top 20, but the winner on CoinMarketCap for the most pumpamentals today. They're up 6.6%. Thorchain also has a good day. So interested. Thorchain's one I'm interested in seeing what the future looks like for Thorchain. I'm not convinced I want to buy into it, but I also wouldn't necessarily think people who buy it are the dumbest. There's pros and cons to it. Aave had a good day here as well. They needed it. They had a bad day the other day. So, and then not too many big movers after that. Let's take a look at the biggest losers. Biggest one, Gala, down 7%. And there we go. DZ's favorite coin, ApeCoin. I don't know if it's his favorite coin, but he definitely likes ApeCoin, and it continues to not do so swell. Really starting to appreciate my distrust in ApeCoin whatsoever. It seems to be working out pretty well for me, not to be involved there. ICP down 3.85% as well. But that is our market cap open today. Guys, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin crash as we start to go into our technical analysis. But before we do that, I messed this up yesterday, and I'm not going to do it 2 days in a row. You guys know that we start all of our charts with the Factoid Elf of the day. And today what we're going to do is the Factoid Elf is bringing us Bitcoin. So we're going to get this Factoid question. We're going to do the Bitcoin TA. We're going to get the answer to that Factoid, and then we're going to move on with the show. Do some more TA, talk about some news, take some Q&A, and do some more TNA. If you guys are happy about that, go ahead and hit that like button. Thank you, Alex. Oh, Crypto says, Tim is Thor's handsome cousin. I wish. Right. What's the factoid of the day, Mr. T-Shroom? Or
Tim,
I guess you didn't come up with it. The elf did. So factoid elf, what is the question of the day?
the elf has just handed me the factoid of the day.
Yes.
And it is, this country on planet Earth has the most active military personnel. Which is it? Is it A, North Korea?
Ooh.
Is it China? Is it C, Russia? Or is it D, USA? What are you drinking? What are you drinking there?
I'm drinking a Zoa. It is
Okay.
strawberry watermelon. It's keeping me alive because, again, I'm running on like almost no sleep.
Okay.
This is a hard one, T-Shroom. I'm gonna cancel A. And I know you're not gonna like that I'm gonna walk through every single one of these, but we're here for entertainment purposes too. Alex of Crypto, right as I say I'm canceling A, he says A. Gia S is saying B. You gotta trust Gia. So I'm leaning towards B. But can I ask a clarifying question? I don't know if you can answer this on behalf of the elf.
Mm?
When you say active military personnel, does that mean actively in the military or actively? I mean, I'm just want to make sure it's not talking about active combat.
It is not active combat. It
So
is
active is in
standing
you are
armies.
in the military.
Standing armies. Armies that if needed to be deployed could be deployed.
And so we're also talking about personnel, so like human beings. We're talking about what the most human beings that are in the military.
That is what we're discussing.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Of the countries on here, China clearly has the highest population, but I don't know if that means they have the most. I'm tempted to say the United States because I know how powerful our military is, but I also don't know if something has happened recently that Team Shroom would know the answer to that has potentially limited that military. So I'm very tempted to just go ahead and say B, China.
You locking it in?
And then what's going to happen is it's somehow going to be A. I don't know how North Korea is going to do it, but they're going to find a way. But I'm going to lock in B. I'm going to go with my gut and say it is China. But I think this might be of all the questions that the elf has asked, the one with Russia definitely has a lot of military as well. So like it could be B, C, or D. I would be very surprised if it's A, but B, C,
right.
or D. I'm going with B.
Don't
give me a hard
Tim's
time.
answer when he doesn't know is it could be any of them. And I'm pretty much picking all of them. So if any of them are right, that's the one I picked.
How boring would it be if you asked the question and I just said B? That's not entertainment.
I don't know, man. I think it shows commitment. It shows decisiveness from a leader, and I think that's good. But we will come back to this factoid at the other side of the TA.
Bitcoin.
Let's get into the Bitcoin
All
TA.
right. Let's do it, guys. All right, here we go. We're going to start off. We're going to look at some smaller time frames. We're going to move out. So I did some technical analysis today for Discover Crypto, where I gave a scenario where we could have moved a little further to the upside based off the 4-hour chart. Now, stick with me here, guys, because it's keeling over right now, and that's actually a sign that the 4-hour chart has turned bearish. The only thing I'm seeing here that could be bullish is the money supply. It looks like it's moving a little bit to the upside, but that money supply doesn't have a lot of momentum going in either direction on the 4-hour chart. So don't read too much into that. This morning, we did have this slight bullish divergence with a curvature right at the mid-level that I said, hey, there's an outside chance on the 4-hour chart we make a move above and come back above 28.6 and set up some bearish divergence. Should have stuck with what I said yesterday on the show. I told you guys yesterday that I thought 28,000 would be a level that you should watch for some resistance. We wicked a little higher, technically about as high as 28,140. Should have stuck with the answer because we ended up wicking, coming back down, but we're doing some more bearish things on the shorter time frames. Let's keep moving on to the hourly chart. I got a lot of oscillators up here, but I'm going to try to zoom the price in for you guys as well. Did not want to do that. That was a big mistake, Tim. What is wrong with you? We're going to fix that in a second. I think I had it down here. It just had it down towards 25.2 or something like that. All right, we'll fix that later. All right, guys, hourly chart. Let's take a look at what we have in the oscillators. Now, we did just get a bullish flash, a green reversal here, but we're doing something right now that is not finished. It's not completed yet. But on the hourly chart, we have closed below this rising level of support since the beginning of its existence, and it does look like we are struggling to get back above it. Now, I told you we are getting some buy signals here on the hourly chart. We got these nice green histograms. The red is well below the money flow on the prime oscillator. I can't remember which one this one's called. RSI is kind of bouncing right there at the 30. That's not overextended necessarily, but seeing a green reversal as well. Hey, maybe are we going to make another push? It's the 4-hour chart that I'm looking up here, and I'm saying, all right, you guys can clearly see we set that lower high. We're keeling back over. Money flow is not doing a lot. I'm not liking, even on the short term, what I'm seeing with Bitcoin's price. Let's get even closer with it. Before I pull up indicators, let's go down the 15-minute chart. Let's just see what the 15-minute chart is doing. Coming back up towards that mid-level. Again, screaming at his buy. So that was a good local bottom for at least the next couple of hours when it flashed. But I'm seeing the oscillators rise a little bit faster than price action. And to me, that is alarming. So let's kind of watch and see what price does here over the next little bit. On the 4-hour chart, absolutely have some time to maybe continue to save this support level and not close below it. But again, we're kind of going back and forth here. It's middle zone, not really recommending longs or shorts for shorter time frames right now. But we are seeing things look not so bullish after that rejection right there around that $28,000 price that we talked about yesterday. Guys, it's when we zoom out, that is when I start to get really concerned. And it is hence the reason for the title that we have today is Bitcoin about to crash. But before I look at this is something we referenced yesterday. I want to bring it back to your attention. And that is this chart right here, this Kraken chart, where we saw a massive inflow of one-day Bitcoin coming back onto Kraken. Of course, it eliminated almost all of the losses that we had during the last pump we had up to 32,000. This is the largest one-day inflow of Bitcoin on an exchange since 2018. Not saying that we're going to repeat a bear market in 2018, not saying we're setting new lows. I love Crypto Lifer as a person. I respect his take, but I'm not Lifer. I didn't say Lifer, Savvy. Shout out to Lifer as well, by the way. But Savvy, I'm not in the same boat as Savvy. I'm not saying, guys, that we're dropping down to 3,500 and we're not going to see a new high for Bitcoin for the next couple of cycles. But I do think that this is an early indication that we will be seeing a crash. Then you also pair this with something that T-Shroom and I talked about yesterday, where we talked about how we're still not looking at a ETF for 3 to 6 months. Now, I'm not convinced that when that ETF comes out, it's going to be bullish anyway. But what this does is it makes the people kind of cool off. All the excitement is gone. The price can dip down so that BlackRock, Larry Fink, and others can continue to purchase Bitcoin at lower levels. And of course, the thing that we're mostly looking at here on the more macro charts, we've been saying it, but just in case you guys have not watched any TA in the last couple of days, I'm very concerned about this pattern right here, this head and shoulders pattern. And you guys know, as we have talked about before, if this plays out and I go to the log chart and we go right here and from the top of the head down to the neckline, move this sucker over here. This gives us a price prediction, guys, at 19,300. This is lower than the levels I've been talking about for a couple months now that I believe personally we're going to come back down to about 19,500, 19,700 to the levels we had back in March. But we're seeing it get a little bit worse than that. I want to make one caveat, though, and we're going to do some other TA here in just a second. I want to make one caveat that potentially, even though I've been calling for less than 20, all right, there we go. Even though I've been calling for less than 20,000 on the Bitcoin price, there was something that I was going back and comparing to 2019 that I do want to bring to your attention that potentially there is a spot around 21,900 to 22 that I think could be convenient, and I'm going to explain to you why. Of course, we don't just look at the charts and do fundamental TA. We turn our brains on here for Investing Bros. Not implying that anyone else doesn't. We're just saying we use a lot of information and try to think critically, because if there's one thing that is consistent about how price movement works, it is always trying to confuse us as retail investors to make us buy when we really should be selling, make us sell when we really should be buying, buying. This is a constant thing that happens. Now, we're looking back here. We're looking back. This is the bear market bottom of 2018. This is that false bull market rally, or I call pre-bull market rally of 2019, that I've compared a lot of things to what we've done before. I want us to look really quickly. First of all, I've already marked this level around 65.30. I've marked this level before. This was the last level of resistance back in November of 18 before the big drop that would take us to the bottom of the bear market before we had a massive rally on Bitcoin. Now, we haven't matched this rally perfectly, but we've mimicked it quite well, if I don't say so myself. And when we look at our Fibonacci levels back here, and I were to move this over here, and let's go to a log chart, I think. No, we're going to stay linear. When we come back here and we're looking at our Fibonacci levels, we come down and we technically wick a little bit below it, but we get here right to / right under our golden pocket level. You guys know I've talked about this before. Golden pocket, this definitely showed that the bears came back into some control, but it's not necessarily a death sentence saying the price has to go lower. I don't really like when we get all the way to the platinum pocket. It's not 100% that if you hit the platinum pocket, you go lower eventually, but it's not a great sign. Golden pocket is kind of the last stand to say, hey, if we can stay out of this golden pocket, we're going to be good. I don't count COVID. That did hit the platinum pocket, but of course, COVID has much more to do than just charting. That had a lot of fundamentals, a lot of news that would have pushed the price down from a sentiment standpoint. In reality, if COVID had never happened, guys, I don't see Bitcoin price ever getting back below 65, 75 ever again. It would have just traded sideways up and to the right into the 2021 bull market. All right, let's, now that we talked about this, why am I referencing the golden pocket? Why am I referencing this last level of resistance? Let's move back to where we are today and look at recent price action. Now, of course, right back here, this is the current bear market bottom, and it's what I think will hold as the bear market bottom. The 15, it's technically, we always say 15.5. It's like a little bit lower than 15.5. It's like 15.4 something, right? Where was the last level of resistance before we made our big break to the downside? Right here. What's that price level? About 21,000. Let's call it 500. 21.5 is that last level. Well, let's also take a look at our Fibonacci levels going down to the bear market bottom up to this false, what I would call the pre-bull market rally, but the false rally. Where's our golden pocket coming in at? Oh my goodness, it's right here at about 21,500. I'm not saying that this is where price will stop. Remember, guys, that I still believe that we're making a move potentially to fill this gap we have, the CME gap that goes all the way to 19,940. I think we go a little bit lower, we fill it, and that's what happens. But I have to kind of sit here and wonder, from a logical standpoint, let's remember what we're kind of working with here on a map. If BlackRock and Larry Fink and Fidelity and others, if all these manipulators, these whales who want to gather more supply because they see the future of Bitcoin, they do not want you to know what their buy levels are. In fact, what they're going to do is they're going to try to fudge you out and have you sell. And the minute you think they're going to make you convinced the price has to go lower, but they'll never let price get down there to where you want to buy. They're going to stop it short and move to the upside. Now, some people think we're going back down to 15.5. Some people think we're going to new lows. They're going to do the darndest they can to convince you based off of news articles that is exactly what's happening. They're going to stop short of that. Is it going to be back to 19.5, or could it be around this 21.5 mark? Because I guarantee you, while I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, people are very aware of the CME gap. And as we start to fall and as we start to move to the downside and we break 25,000, I guarantee you, someone write this down. Watch other technical analysts, not just crypto technical analysts, but people from news accounts. Watch them bring up this chart and start talking about the CME gap that goes all the way below $20,000. So people will become convinced. Now they're saying, boom, that's it. We have to close that gap. Wouldn't it make sense if I'm a manipulator and everyone's been convinced that we're heading in that direction and that'd be an easy buy just to buy right down here below 20,000? Wouldn't it make a lot of sense to stop short of that? Somewhere right around a former resistance level of 21.5. I'm not saying that that's what has to happen, guys, but I am saying that that is an interesting spot to look at. And even further, let's go ahead and look at some other things here right on there. Not only is it golden pocket, I'm going to take this down. Let's take a look at fixed range volume profile throughout this bear market and kind of see what the volume looks like at that level. 21.5, ladies and gentlemen. If you go a little bit above it, not going to get it perfectly, but there is a nice little volume gap or a valley. And you guys have heard me talk about fixed range volume profile before. Everyone pays attention to the sexy peaks. Everyone loves the peaks. We got a peak right here at 23,000. We got a peak right here at about 20,200. We got a peak right here at 19,156. These are all good things. These are all great levels. Keep an eye on. I don't know what this thing is doing here, so I'm going to get rid of that. If I need to redraw it later, I will, but that's confusing me. This is all good stuff. I can see why people love this. But look at some of the levels that price has had the best bouncing opportunities. Boom, right here, 25, 300, 25, 2. This level is a gap that we had right here. When we come down here, we wicked down here in March to 19.6, 19.7. What is that? It's a valley. A lot of times you will see peaks get used for support and resistance, but the amount of times that valleys are used is astronomical. They're just as important as the peaks are. And we find ourselves with a nice little peak right there, a little bit above that golden pocket level, that 21,000. Again, we're looking at about 21.9, 21.8 area that is going to fit kind of close. I think that's actually going to be pretty much the top of the golden pocket. Let's draw this once again just to kind of coordinate and see what this is saying. Yeah, the top of this golden pocket coming in right there, about 21.8 or so. So that little range is a very interesting one to watch. I kind of think, T-Shroom, as I'm working through this, I don't think I'm going to deploy all of my dry powder, but I think that this is the next level for me. Like, I have no plans to buy Bitcoin or long Bitcoin anytime soon. I think I'll be tempted to potentially at least use a portion of my dry powder here around the 21.9 area, 21.8 area, save some for that potential fall to 19.3 that we were talking about with the head and shoulders pattern. But it's always a good idea not to buy at what you think is the exact bottom. You always buy a little bit higher than it just in case you're off. The worst thing in the world would be if you predicted a level and then you missed that level by like $100. Because you can rally and you can be very happy with yourself that, oh, look how close I was to predicting that. It doesn't matter if you're close. The only thing that matters when close is horseshoes and hand grenades is how that sentence goes. In trading, it doesn't matter if you're close. If you miss your entry or miss your exit, it's as if you were 1,000 miles off of it. Always buy a little higher than what you actually think price is going to go, and always sell a little lower than how high you think price will go. T-Shroom, that's my Bitcoin TA. Before we get the factoid answer, I want to hear your thoughts about everything I broke down there from the technical side, from the logical side. What is your brain kind of telling you?
Let me see if I'm understanding correctly. So you think that CME gap is almost like a 4D chess match where they're going to try to FUD it south of like 23, which I think a lot of analysts think that 23 is a reasonable level for Bitcoin to come down and touch, and then we go higher, right? That's kind of the reload zone. That's where you gas up the car and you get back on the interstate to go higher. But you're saying that once we get down to 23, then there'll be a media cycle of, oh, well, look at this CME gap down here. Mm-hmm. And then maybe Bitcoin does go ahead and penetrate through 23, but then a bunch of people flood out, and that's the entry liquidity for the big boys.
Just, I still have a feeling that the CME gap will be filled. What I'm saying is you have to be aware. Okay, so something you just said there, and it's almost said like it's a joke, like, oh, you're saying they're playing 4D chess? The answer is yes. If you don't think that whales and institutions and smart money investors play 3D chess with money, you clearly haven't watched any movies about how stock markets work. You clearly haven't paid attention to how our economy works. You haven't been paying attention to the way these people move. And that's what we're so passionate about, is helping people understand there are factors and people that work against you. And Wyckoff method is called the composite man. There's all these entities that you have to compile as if they're one figure called the composite man, that he is actively at all times trying to FUD you out at the bottom, convince you not to buy so that he can buy, and FOMO in at the tops. And they're going to get confusing with it throughout the whole process to shake you down like the bully on the playground, shaking you down for your lunch money. It's ignorant to not think that they're trying to play 4D chess with you, to think that that crypto and stock markets play by simple rules that you can just come on and do simple charting and that's it. listen, I love charting. I love doing technical analysis, but you also got to understand there's a game to be played even when it comes to charting. And you got to learn to think the way these whales think, because if you don't, it's your lunch money they're taking. I'd prefer to keep my lunch money and make more money with it.
Yep. Well, given that, I think that it's a good prediction. It's a good analysis. We'll just have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I think those are some good levels to deploy some more dry powder. Unfortunately, I'm seeing in the comments that some folks are looking like they're running low on dry powder.
Most people are. Most of us are. I don't have as much. I mean, everyone. I don't think anyone has enough dry powder. I think you always could say if you have $100, you wish you have $400. If you had $400, you wish you had $1,000. If you had $1,000, you wish you had $10,000. I wish I had $1 billion. But that's just not how the cookie crumbled. And I can only control what I can control. T-Shroom.
Mm-hmm.
Got to leave the rest out of it. So whatever dry powder you have left, be responsible with it. Hedge your bets. Don't try to pinpoint bottoms. It doesn't. I really want to stress that to you guys. Anyone who is getting newer into investing or has done this before, do not fall for the lie or the trap that you can pinpoint bottoms and pinpoint tops. It is a losing game. Learn to remove the word perfect from your vocabulary when talking about buying and selling. Use the word good. And if on the off chance you do, it'll happen. If you trade and invest for a long period of time, eventually, guys, you will buy a bottom perfectly almost. You will sell a top perfectly almost. It's happened to me. I've had it happen and I rejoiced. But I didn't do it on purpose. I literally thought the price was going to go a little bit lower, but I bought anyway, and it ended up being a bottom. I was like, oh, that's cool. And there's times where I've sold, I'm like, I think the price is going to go a little higher, but I'm not willing to risk it. And then the price didn't go higher. I'm like, oh, wow, that worked out nicely for me. But I'd rather be there thinking that it was going to go higher or lower than being like, I've pinpointed it, man. This is it. We're dropping right to this level. So I'm going to put my buy there, and then missed a buy order by literally less than 0.00001%. It's the worst feeling in the world. I've also had that feeling. Please don't make that same mistake. It sucks. It sucks a lot.
Oh, it does. It does. Well, all we can do is just continue to observe and do the best we can with the dry powder that we are gifted with in the moment that we exist in. And that's a T-Shroom original. You can quote and put on a T-shirt.
Quote of the day tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, guys, let's go ahead and jump into some stories.
No, Tim, the Factoid elf. The Factoid elf. We don't know. We didn't know the answer.
But before we get into the stories, let's go ahead and see what the answer was to the factoid of the day. That, of course, is China.
I almost squeaked out of that. I almost lost. I almost talked myself out of China and into USA, but I'm glad I didn't.
I was trying to fudge you out of it.
Now, if that question had been the most funded military, I would have answered USA, and I do believe I would have been right about that. Correct, T-Shroom?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so. Let's take a look, guys. So this is data from 2022. Largest armies in the world ranked by active military personnel. You've got China. You've got India, and you've got the United States isn't until third place at 1.3 million active.
I will say the fact that North Korea has more than Russia is a surprise to me. So I would have, if you had taken out, well, I guess it had to be China, but if you had asked me Russia or North Korea, I would have said Russia first. Mm-hmm. So I would have gotten that one wrong.
Yeah. Well, the issue there though is that North Korea, I think because of the way that their government's classified or something like that, they call almost all of their citizens members of their military. So, and then the UN or whoever's gathering this data just acknowledges that statistic. So would North Korea stand a chance against Russia or Pakistan or Iran? Probably not.
No.
But
well, actually, I say that I wouldn't have thought Ukraine stood a chance, even with all the funding. The fact that Ukraine's doing as well as they are against Russia. It's pretty impressive, honestly, when you think about it. I'm not going to get into that whole debacle of other details, but I am just going to say, hey, Ukraine, doing well against Russia. That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah. So there you go. So if you're looking to join a military, which one would you join, Tim?
I think the country of which I live in, USA.
Okay, you wouldn't make it based on how many friends you'd have, how many new buddies?
I think I'd be too tall for China, and that's weird because I'm not that tall.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. Well, we had a continuing of a narrative this morning in the market. Actually, came from across the pond, And I brought up a meme on the morning video. If you haven't watched it, actually, if you're watching this, you probably don't need to go watch it, but maybe go watch it just to serve some support. Give us that view and drop a like. And if you haven't liked this video yet, then you're in a heap of trouble. And the Grim Reaper might be coming for you next. No, after SVB, Signature Bank, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, it is now. This morning's headline from CNBC was UK's Metro Bank shares suspended multiple times after plummeting more than 25%. This comes after reports that it was trying to raise only 600 million pounds, which is about 727 million in debt and equity. So a relatively routine financial maneuver here, actually sent a signal to the market that this is no bueno and it's time to get out of the common shares for UK's Metro Bank. So that'll be one to monitor. It's a contagion, that's potentially spreading to UK, but it's not new to Europe, right? The Credit Suisse already has had this. They had to get custodied by UBS, and then also Deutsche Bank has had some pretty bad structural issues over there. Although I don't believe they had to be bailed out too much. But I'm not hearing good things about the European economy. And this is just another tick in that direction.
They have had inflation numbers go down recently,
right? But they're still pretty bad. They're still pretty bad in the UK. And then we can kind of throw this one over to you. This was a headline from yesterday, but former BlackRock director says that the ETF approval could bring 200 billion to Bitcoin. Did you want to talk about this outside of the context of TA, or did we pretty much kill this cat?
No, I mean we've talked about it before. I'll be really quick, guys. That's great. But I want you guys to realize 200 billion is not going to do everything that people's hopes and dreams are talking about. In fact, I've talked about this before and did some math on this. And there's always speculation here. We don't know how much money is going to come. But if you looked at every company that is applying for a spot ETF and you added all of their assets under management called AUM together, we're looking at about 16 to 17 trillion dollars, right? Not as much money as everyone thinks. 100% of that is not flowing into Bitcoin. Best case scenario, 5%, which means somewhere around 700 billion, which is higher than what this one is saying. 700 billion, guys. Yeah, that's great. It would more than that's higher than the current market cap of Bitcoin, but that's not taking us over $100,000 per Bitcoin. We still have to wait for more money to come in, and it will come in. But a lot of people are acting like, oh man, BlackRock getting in, that means we're going to have probably $11 trillion coming into Bitcoin alone. No. This article, 200 billion, that's lower than what I was saying with 600 or 700 billion. We're going to need a lot more to continue to push Bitcoin, and it's going to come. Just temper your expectations.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I was actually doing a quick calculation here on the coin market cap chart, because you can see this. So this is the market cap of Bitcoin. So right now we're roughly market cap roughly at let me make sure I'm getting this right here. 536, 538. Is that about right? 538. Yeah, 536. Sorry. So if we went up 200 billion, then that would be roughly 736, right? And 736 would put us just under these lows here, right? So if we flip back over to price, oh goodness, it only really puts us at 30K if I'm doing that right. Back to these lows, right? Is where I drew it, or was it these lows? I think it was this low. No, it was this low right here, 39K.
Yeah.
So 39K. This is a very crude way of coming to that conclusion, that price, but 200 billion addition of market cap, right? That would put us around there. So 38K would be quite a new high for the multi-month certainly for 2023. But that would definitely not be an all-time high.
Well, and again, there's going to be other things. First of all, people will come back in. Whales will keep buying more. They'll accumulate more wealth and move it over. The halving will come and drop new supply by 50%. So there's a lot of factors that we're not sitting here saying that Bitcoin won't make it back to all-time highs. That's maybe what Savvy would say. But we still think new highs are coming. But these people are predicting potentially 400,000, 500,000. There's certain people that believe that Bitcoin could make it to 1 million by the fall of 2025. And I'm just here to let you know, guys, it's good for price that institutions are getting involved. It's good for price that we're going to have spot ETFs and we're going to get access. There's going to be trillions of dollars that they're not all going to flow into Bitcoin, but will be exposed and think about Bitcoin for the first time because they trust BlackRock and Fidelity and these other sources. It's just something to temper expectation and say, all right, Bitcoin to 100,000, reasonable. If we're getting really bullish, 150, it's really asking a lot to get much higher than about 150. Temper your expectations. Bitcoin is going up and to the right. Long term, trillions will trickle into it. I do believe in a future where we see a $1 million Bitcoin, but it's not going to be this cycle. And I don't even think it's going to be the next cycle. I remember, teacher, I remember back in 2021, the feeling, no one thought they were going to $1 million during 2021, but there was almost like this feeling of like, oh man, we're going to get up over 100,000 on Bitcoin. And then next cycle, we're going to get up over 1 million. And then it's going to keep climbing. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll get a $10 million coin. And I'm like, listen, in the 50 years from now, I don't know what the price is going to be. The truth is, in 50 years, we're not going to be comparing it to US dollars because I think the US dollar is going to be obliterated. But the point is that Bitcoin will be worth a lot of money, but it takes time. Guys, only 5% of the world, less than 5% of the world owns Bitcoin right now. And at the top of this next bull market, it's not going to be significantly higher. I think best case scenario, we're pushing up maybe towards 10%, maybe. But I think you're starting to see the right people open up their eyes to it, and you're starting to see the attention that it really needs to do its real work of taking out fiat currencies. But stick with the process, stay patient, and be in this for the long haul. Don't think you're going to make millions of dollars in this bull market. It's going to take a while, but long term, your long term patience will pay off.
That's right. That's right. And and another thing too is if Bitcoin never leaves $35,000, but the dollar continues to inflate at the current rate, you still win, right?
Yeah.
Because your money is actually not inflating. It's just like buying a bar of gold that just constantly goes up and up versus the dollar. All right, continuing on. There's been a pretty big bullish prediction, right? And Tim and I have just gone kind of back and forth on this exact point. But Bitcoin to reach 1 million by 2026, Arthur Hayes bullish prediction. Now 2026 is the easy caveat here. He's not saying tomorrow. Whoop. But he is. He's
talking about the top of the bull market.
Yeah. He's talking about the top of the bull market, and he accredits it to monetary crisis, Bitcoin ETFs, and a stock market boost will propel Bitcoin to new highs. He also mentions China's crypto approach and Hong Kong's potential as a major crypto player, and it kind of made me think, Tim. It kind of made me think, if I'm China, right, and I've got this big real estate crisis on my hands. It hasn't really. I don't know exactly what it's like and what has changed for the Chinese experience, right? But if there's supposed to be a big reckoning of the Chinese real estate market, which we saw headlines, we're continuing to see headlines about Evergrande and the Garden Bank, whatever it is, wouldn't it behoove the Chinese government to kind of authorize the investment into a third vehicle, right? Because if I'm the Chinese government, I don't necessarily want all these Chinese real estate owners to say, hey, we're seeing the writing on the walls. We don't want to own this real estate anymore. Nobody's living in it. And now the piper's coming home. The chickens are coming home to roost.
The army pipers coming home?
Wouldn't it behoove the Chinese government to go ahead and authorize Bitcoin, the ownership? And we've seen some headlines coming out of the judiciary of China that Bitcoin has some protection. So this kind of already may be happening. But you kind of smelling what I'm stinking here, Tim?
Yeah, no, and I think that's the main point here. And Arthur Hayes, I still think he's wrong about $1 million by 2026. But I think he says something that's important. If you scroll back down to it, go back to his article, if you can, and I'll make the point. Then you can make what you want to say. Go back to what he said is going to factor in. He says he believes it's going to be monetary crisis. All right, yes, but not yet. I think people are expecting that the dollar's going to collapse. But let's remember, guys, the dollar has been collapsing for a while now. It's just that we just now, within the last 15 years, have seen an actual solution to the crashing dollar. But people have been concerned about the dollar for a long, long time, right? I think it's going to take longer than you think. We joke about this all the time. You know, what's his name? Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki has called 7 of the last 2 recessions perfectly. The joke is he's just always talking about doom and gloom. And so eventually, yes, the clock is right twice a day. But if you're just always saying doom and gloom, it's hard to take you seriously. People are predicting the collapse of the dollar. They've been predicting the collapse of the dollar. And I do think there's a lot of things wrong with the dollar. I just don't know if it's time yet for the dollar to collapse. Then you look at the next one. You look at the ETFs. We just talked about it. Guys, $200 billion, even $700 billion, which is a more bullish factor. It's not significantly going to move the needle for Bitcoin to give us, let alone $150,000 Bitcoin, but on $1 million, that's just way out of the consideration. So the biggest thing he's pointing out here is China's adoption. China's got a lot of money. They have a lot of stuff, but their economy is struggling pretty heavily. They're going to have to make a major move for even them to be a factor in making it to $1 million. I think $1 million, he's asking for a lot. He's getting a little rich with that prediction. I do think those factors could get us back above, or not back, get us above 100,000, maybe push towards that 150, but that's about it. It's just the market's not ready for much higher than that. Yeah, you were going to bring up another chart, though. What were you looking at?
Yeah, I was taking a look over here at the stock to flow model. It actually, the Bitcoin stock to flow model, which so far, this one has kind of held up for the most part. We've put in a similar low that we saw in 2012. This would be definitely a lower low down here on this.
Yeah.
So it's gone lower than in the last cycles, but it's not the lowest that it's been total. So there's still a decent amount of hope for this one to continue. And it puts it at 450,000 by 2026. And at the earliest, it's looking at 400,000 at April 14th, 2025.
Just look at the trend, though. Look at the trend of how explosively it got over that median, and every single cycle it gets less explosive. Who knows if this one even makes it up back to it? Like this one, we could see us now. The price is going to stay below that line, and that was a line that was always doomed to eventually fall apart and no longer be consistent. And I think that line is, it's about moot at this point. I think that's not going to be the factor that actually helps us predict anything. Again, still up into the right, guys. I'm not saying Bitcoin is going to start falling and setting new lows on the macro scale, but the explosive markets that we once saw, that is not that way. It is still way more explosive than the stock market, but it's not going to be the same. We're not going to see 20x's again, 30x's. I think, guys, if we see a 6 or 7x on Bitcoin's price, that's a great bull market. That's my personal opinion. But let's do this, T-Shroom. Guys, if you guys have been enjoying this episode, it's 3:47. That means we have about 13 minutes left on the show today. Mm-hmm. Well, let's do some Q&A and some T&A. I told everybody that I was going to do at least a Cardano TA because we did see some good movement over there. So while I do Cardano TA, I know a lot of people want to see it. Go ahead and start chatting what you guys want to see from technical analysis, or is there any other topics you guys want to see us discuss on the show? But let's do this. Let's take a look at good old Cardano daily chart, guys. Not great. Again, shorter time frames. We're probably going to look down here as bullish. It was one of the bigger movers of the last 4 hours. But the daily chart, we just peaked out when we came back up here, wicked at 27.4 cents. We're getting this overbought red reversal, overextended on the RSI. Money flow starts to keel over. Not a great look here. Let's pull up some other indicators as well. Technically, as far as those would be concerned, you have a little bit further to go. And we also have an order block all the way up at 29, almost 30 cents. But we're seeing some oscillators say that's probably a little rich for now. Let's take a look maybe even at some longer-term Fibonacci levels. What are we doing? This also kind of is going to communicate to you how Cardano, it's just not been Cardano's time here recently. We're kind of rejecting right above, but pretty much right at that 0.236 level on a macro Fibonacci point, going all the way to the peak we had up at around 37 cents back here in July, down to the more recent low. If we even that's kind of where I want to look at the Fibonacci there. You could make an argument right here. Up to this high, we got back up to that platinum pocket, but that's such a more micro way of looking at it. Yeah, we might see a bounce back up, but I don't know. I'm kind of sitting here, daily chart, not liking what I'm seeing as far as that is concerned. I think that's going to be a respected value. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart. Let's get rid of our Fibonacci as well so we can see this more clearly. 4-hour chart giving us a little bit more room potentially to the upside, but you are seeing kind of right at that middle point. You always got to keep your eye out for a potential rejection right there. Let's take a look here. Yeah, technically, maybe we have a little bit more room to the upside. Let's go back. I'm going to apply that Fibonacci level once again to kind of even take some consideration. Do we double top potentially coming back up here to about 28 cents or so with Fibonacci? Do we maybe make a little bit higher? Do we see this as we hit the platinum pocket? Like I said, we came all the way back down to 0.382, but maybe make a push up to 29 cents up here to the 0.1236. Not 4 hour. The 4 hours not showing us having that kind of a momentum here. More than likely, what I would expect if the bulls push on Cardano and we do go a little higher, you could even like get up here, start closing candles up around 27.4 cents, but be in danger of a bearish divergence because the oscillator maybe doesn't get pushed back up as high, even though the price closes higher. That would be some bearish divergence. I'm not, again, long term very bullish on Cardano, but this is not altcoin season, ladies and gentlemen. This is like the boring sideways, and then again with Bitcoin crashing, more than likely crypto and altcoins will follow it as well. So I'm kind of continuing to watch out that. You guys know longer time frames, still looking down here at 18 cents. But I do want you to know from looking at these charts, in case anyone is wanting the shorter TA, there is potential room for upside. Definitely looking at the 4 hour chart. Let's take a look at the hourly chart. Let me pull back up these indicators as well, because I do like these bands and we've been respecting them pretty well here on these smaller time frames. Money flow coming to a little bit of a peak right here with a reversal on the hourly chart. So that kind of that 4 hour in a middle zone saying, hey, do we keep going up? Do we keep going down? Well, the hourly chart kind of is telling us maybe down. Maybe down is the right way to go here. Again, money flow keeling over. We definitely got overextended both our oscillator, our RSI, and our chart prime oscillator. So trade cautiously here on Cardano, guys. I think a pullback down to 25.8 would make a lot of sense in this short little small time frame. Let's take a look at fixed range volume profile as well. Again, not a whole heck of a lot of volatility right in here. We're hovering right at our point of control. Don't even have a value area low. I think maybe a push back up to 26 cents. That value area high could be an interesting one to keep your eyes on. But with a reversal, and that's where our cloud is here on the hourly chart, don't expect any explosive movements on Cardano unless something breaks, a new partnership, a new update, which Cardano's pretty good about. You kind of can see this stuff coming. I don't think we're expecting any new crazy updates on Cardano. Tell me if I'm wrong, people in chat. But look at this opportunity to potentially scoop up some more Cardano at a lower price. That is our Cardano T-Shroom. Did we see any other things? I see French Toaster asked for Solana. Anything else that you saw?
Yeah, Solana and Cardano, which we've already covered.
Cardano.
WMT.
World Mobile Token. That's a layer 2 over there on Cardano. Let's see if we have time for that. It's 352. Going to start with Solana. We'll try to make our way over to World Mobile Token after this. Solana just crashed through, like just blew up right through this reversal through the cloud. But it's coming back down. I do like what I'm seeing here on the 4 hour chart, though. I like how after this big movement, the oscillators dropped pretty significantly, not all the way back down to where they were here a couple of days ago, but pretty far comparative to price. Watch for maybe the money flow still coming down here on the 4 hour chart. There's little signs of green histograms of nothing crazy. Watch for a little bit lower of a move here on Solana. Let's take a look at the hourly chart he's saying. Yeah, hovering with little choppy things. I think we're at the 1 hour dynamic reactor, but not getting necessarily overwhelming buy signals. We got some light green histograms. Watch for a smaller crash on Solana, maybe back down here towards 21-ish. Let me take a look. Let me clean this up a little bit. Let me look at some Fibonacci here as well.
Clean it up, Tim.
We're forming a little bit of a bull pennant there, but I think based off the oscillators, I think it is kind of implying green reversal right there on the hourly chart. I just want to see the green. I want to see the MVP oscillator give me some more green flashes right there. But you absolutely could make a case for this being a little bit of a bull pennant, especially if I went out to the 4 hour chart. Not pennant, but a bull flag. Not that I think this is going to happen, guys. I'm going to draw this. I don't think this is going to play out to this fullest extent, but I do think Solana could make another push to the upside. The question is, does it do it like that? Have an explosive movement to $28? That's the TA. If this is a bull flag, that is what would happen. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. I think we pull a little bit lower. Then we cancel out this bull flag, but I do think there's a chance that we can revisit the prices that we just peaked up here on 24.82. Again, we pull those oscillators and our flags up. Yeah, I think we could come down. Watch 21 Watch 21 lower levels, 21.1, maybe a little higher than that, 21.2. Let's go back to the hourly chart. Where was that dynamic or where was the bottom? Yeah, 21.2, 21.3. Get back into the green wave here. Get the MVP oscillator flash first on Solana, and then potentially another move back up these levels. You guys can see we broadened out a little bit here on the hourly chart, so we could get a little bit more volatility. This could be a thing that like we see in the last, we'll see a portion where Solana is going to be in the biggest losers on the 24-hour on 1 second, and then the next day it's going to flip and it's be the biggest gainer because it's going to get some volatility where it comes down, flashes in the green, and then makes a push back up to the upside. Absolutely could see that happening here for Solana. I like what the charts are looking at right now. And of course, Solana's community, pretty active, pretty engaging. They're doing a lot of things there. We said World Mobile Token, right? So WMT.
Which is also the ticker for Walmart, by the way, WMT.
Good. World Mobile Token. Let's take a look at what it is saying. It does not give us volume. It doesn't respect us that way. So, still on a marker. This is something I drew the other day. I actually sent this to our good old friend Ada Ace because he was asking about it. Sorry, I have something in my throat.
This noob knows literally nothing, says Shima Basir.
Thank you. Shima Basir. Are you the noob that doesn't? Oh,
I think he's talking about me because I wasn't saying anything, which that's fair. That's a fair if you're not saying anything,
It's good to have you here, Samir. Thank you for the engagement. We love you. If you want to be a bro, you can be a bro, man. We're looking at a falling wedge pattern here on the WMT, and the question is, are we going to see a little bit of a fake out like we saw back here, or are we going to start closing candles above here on the daily chart? Let's scroll in here. Today, we broke through. Now, we had our reversal signals here a couple of days ago. So the fact that our oscillator trading sideways, the price going up, this could be a sign, guys, that we're making some bullish momentum here pushing through. Let's take the 4-hour chart. Again, 4 hours. Looks like we just within the last 4-hour candle is when we broke through here. We ignored some bearish divergence. So 4-hour chart looking like bulls are taking control right here for WMT breaking through this resistance level. Let's take a look at the 1-hour chart. 1-hour chart looking nice, kind of confirming some of that stuff. Every time we pull back down, the 1-hour chart will give us a nice buy flash. We bounced off this mid-level and we're moving back up. So I'm bullish. I like the way this is moving right now. WMT on these lower time frames. Daily chart, again, we could just be getting started or we could be rejecting something pretty harsh, but if we can keep moving to the upside and continue, let's close a couple more day. I wouldn't be surprised, even if we shoot back up, would not be surprised, guys, to see price come up and then come back down and retest this red line. So I want to see how that price kind of does that. But multiple candles on the 4-hour for sure, but even the daily chart above this line gives us some good confirmation, and then this could be very interesting. Now, this is a smaller token, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because smaller tokens do not always fully, like with formations, they don't always give us the greatest indication of this formation. I'm going to get super conservative with this one. I'm not going to involve this one. Even though the resistance starts up here, I'm going to almost say the starting point of this chart kind of comes down right here. Let's say we were to break out. That would give us a price push back up to 23 cents here for World Mobile Token. Price is higher. We haven't seen prices like that since all the way back in September of 2022. And again, take that with a grain of salt because again, the crypto market's not. That's a major pump. Out of curiosity, we're at 13, so we're talking about over 100% pump, or close to 100% pump. I guess. Sorry, excuse me. Close to 100% pump, 80% pump. I don't see 80% coming into World Mobile Token, but it could. And so let's continue to watch what's happening here. Either way, I do think, but what I understand, paying attention to the fundamentals as much as I have, I definitely can do more research on it, but I think that it's one of the top layer 2s on Cardano. I'm a big believer in what Cardano is doing. And so if it's one of the top ones, I'm not saying this is a perfect comparison, but what's the top layer 2 on Ethereum? Matic, right? And so if Cardano continues to do its thing well, and we see that World Mobile Token is one of the top layer 2s, continues to get momentum and gets put in the same category as Matic, we could see some explosive movements just like Matic as well. Absolutely, I do think World Mobile Token is going to take up a small percentage, but I do think it's going to make its way into my portfolio for this next bull market. Even if I have to buy it higher, I still am going to wait till I see some lower prices on Bitcoin before I start investing in some of these other tokens. But do with that what you will. Again, breaking through a resistance level, ignoring bearish flashes. This is a bullish sign here for World Mobile Token on what I'm seeing on the charts.
I like it.
Yeah, that took us
to buy
right
it
to
higher.
339. right to 359. What are you saying, Pape?
If I have
Yeah.
to buy it higher, is the right attitude.
Yeah.
That's the attitude to have right now, guys. If I have to buy it higher, then that's what it is. You know, if you believe in something, believe in it, and maybe get a little exposure to it, right?
Yeah.
But keep your powder dry right now. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. There's too many question marks around what the Fed is going to do, right?
Yeah, Eric Wallen here commenting a lot. Tim, it's like helium miners in Africa, basically. Okay, but he said, but they still have a ton of infrastructure. So are you saying like comparing it to helium and like what they did now? I'm just saying it's like what helium is, but for Africa. I still would say I still would be bullish on that. I think that's a great token. Again, I'm going to hold off for a little bit of a dip. In fact, we got to close the show up here, but WMT over BTC, does this have a chart? No, it does not. So that's hard to. What it had does WMT over ADA? Maybe we could see this one though. I would have. They don't have a WMT over
I
ADA
think you'd
chart.
have to look at that on Tap Tools.
I would just be interested to see comparatively to the Bitcoin chart, what does the price look like? Like it's not going to be perfectly like. All right, so that's kind of I'm just roughly putting that in my eyeballs for BTC. It's not crazily different than the Bitcoin chart. So like if we had seen like the trend of this moving to the upside, I might say, oh, it looks like it's a little bit inverse to Bitcoin. So maybe if Bitcoin drops, we could see it continue to go to the upside. It's following the same bearish trend. So that to me communicates this is a coin as well, that if Bitcoin goes down, I think it will go down. So again, yeah, we're breaking through resistance, but we easily could be a fake out. We could drop back down into it and then find our way back down to set some new lows here. I'm gonna wait. I think this is one of those coins that I don't care about trying to pinpoint it on its chart itself. This is one to me that I'm looking at Bitcoin and Cardano, seeing them being at the buying prices I want them at, and then saying, you know what, I'm gonna add WMT to my bag as well. But with that said, though, guys, it is 4 p.m. It's 4:01 actually. So we gave you an extra minute. If you enjoyed that extra minute, go ahead and smash that like button on your way out. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'm talking to you, Samaya Beiser. So hit subscribe. Just do it. Just hit the subscribe button. Guys, as we kind of close it out, thought of the day, I'm just going to continue to camp out on the stuff that T-Shroom said earlier. I think that's a perfect quote of the day. We started the episode with it. Let's close the episode with it. Guys, if you are a person who is highly strung, you get stressed very easily, you struggle with anxiety a lot, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to learn the discipline of meditation. Learn to breathe, to remove yourself from the world, remove yourself from the problem, breathe, and meditate on the concept of I only have so many things within my control. So everything I can control, I will. But when things fall out of my control, I'm going to leave them to the things that control them. I'm going to control what I can control. I'm going to leave the other things to what controls them. I guarantee you, if you can learn to activate that practice into your life, the stress, the anxiety, the struggles, they will fade away. Something we said a couple of weeks ago, and this continues to reign true for this point, is the brain. This is a scientific study. The brain is incapable of triggering both anxiety and gratefulness at the exact same time. It's impossible. If you are in a spirit of being grateful, you cannot be anxious. If you're in a season where things are not going your way and you have no control over what is happening, focus on the things that you can control and the things that are going well and exude a spirit of gratefulness, and watch that stress, watch that anxiety, watch that control factor inside of you that, trust me, guys, if I cannot tell you another person in this world that has had a control issue the way I have, I don't know how it's possible. I grew up and I had a massive control problem, but the more I've learned to be grateful, the more I've learned to control what I can control and leave the rest to God, the anxiety, the stress, the problems in my life have melted away like you cannot believe. Try acting grateful today. Try just controlling what you can control. Leave the rest up to others. That's all we have for you guys today. We will see you tomorrow morning for our news update. The rest of you will see you tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. as always now for our live show. You guys have a fantastic day.
Trying to make paper, turn that matter to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing. investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got your word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better than cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.